In this week's Parsha, the Torah relates about the sin of the Meraglim, about how they slandered the land, and amongst the different bad reports that they said was V'shomra inu, there we saw the Nephilim, Bnei Anak, the sons of the giants, Min ha-Nephilim, from the Nephilim, V'nehi beinenu kachagavim, we were in our own eyes like grasshoppers, and so too we were in their eyes. Rashi on the word Nephilim explains, Anakim, they were giants, Mibnei, from the sons of Shamchazoi and Azoel, who had fallen down from heaven in the time of Enosh. So Mefarshim explain that what's bothering Rashi is the double expression of Nephilim in the pasuk. It first says Ha-Nephilim, then it says Bnei Anak, and then it says again Min Ha-Nephilim. And this is what Rashi is explaining, that the two times Nephilim, each one is actually translated or understood slightly differently. The first Nephilim means giants, as Rashi had already explained in Parshas Bereshis, that Nephilim, Beloshen Ivris in Ivris means Anakim is giants. And the second time when it says Bnei Anak Min Ha-Nephilim is referring to the fact that they had fallen down, Nephilim, they had fallen down Min Ha-Shamayim. And therefore in the meaning of our pasuk is that these Anakim, these giants, come from those Nephilim, those that had fallen down from Shamayim, whose names were Shamchazoi and Azoel. The Rebbe says that we need to understand, in addition to the difficulty with this pirush, which we'll discuss later in the Sicha, but the question number one is, why is it relevant in Pshuta Shel Mikra, number one, that those that had fallen down from Shamayim were called Shamchazoi and Azoel, and number two, that this fall had happened at the time of the generation of Enosh. The question is even more. By the pasuk Ha-Nephilim hayu ba'aretz, this is towards the end of Parshas Bereshis, that the Nephilim were in the land, we don't find that Rashi should tell us there the names of the Nephilim. So the question is, since in the original place where Torah mentions the story of these Nephilim, in Parshas Bereshis, Rashi didn't find it necessary to tell us their names, so how is it that specifically in our Parsha, where the idea of these Nephilim seems to be more just mentioned by the way, and yet here Rashi has to mention their names? Another thing we need to understand is, in regards to the names of the Nephilim that had fallen down from Shamayim, we find in Chazal two opinions. In Masechta Yuma it says that there was a story that happened with Uzzah and Azoel. And in the same names are brought in a number of places in Medrashim. The Targum Yonason says Shamchazoi and Uziel. And so too we find in Masechta Nida that Sicha and Oid were the children of Achia bar Shamchazoi. And Rashi there in the Gemara says that Oid came from both Shamchazoi and Uziel. And so too it's brought in other places. So the question over here is, why is Rashi choosing this opinion of Shamchazoi and Azoel and not the opinion of Uzzah and Azoel? The Rebbe says, in addition to the addition of Rashi in regards to the names of the Nephilim, in the actual translation of the word Nephilim, there's seemingly also a difference in the way Rashi explains it. In our Parsha, Rashi tells us that they fell down min hashamayim, from heaven. Whereas in the pasuk Ha-Nephilim hayu ba'aretz, again this is the end of Parshas Bereshis, Rashi gives a different translation for the word Nephilim. Rashi says, because al shem, they're so called shenaflu, because they fell, v'hipilu es ha'olam, and they made the world fall. Which means to say that Rashi is translated, when Rashi says naflu, what does he mean naflu? It means that they themselves had a downfall. They were destroyed from the world. Just like hipilu es ha'olam means that they destroyed the world, it caused the world a downfall. Shenaflu means they themselves had a downfall. V'hipilu es ha'olam, and they caused everyone else to have a downfall. Now there are mefarshim that say that what Rashi there means when it says naflu min ha'olam is that it means that they fell down from olam ha'elyon, from the heavens up above. In other words, like Rashi is telling us over here, shenaflu min hashamayim. But the Rebbe says it's tzarech iyun gadol. It really needs a lot of clarification whether you could actually say that that's what Rashi means there, because there seems to be no hint in Rashi to that at all. On the contrary, Rashi says both things together. Shenoflu, they fell, v'yipilu es ha'olam, and they made the world, they made everyone else fall or have a downfall. So it would seem more like shenoflu just means that they themselves fell or had a downfall, not that they fell down from the sky. So the question is, why is Rashi changing over here from his Pirush and Parshas Bereshis and now telling us a new Pirush that it means they fell from the sky? Because, says the Rebbe, we could have seemingly left in our Parsha the same explanation that they caused everyone a major downfall. Because even that would express and would emphasize why this would scare the Yidden. In other words, if they are such people that cause everyone a downfall. Especially, says the Rebbe, if we look at the second Pirush Rashi there in Parshas Bereshis, where it speaks about the Nephilim, Anshe Hashem, the Pasuk says, and Rashi says that there were Anshe Shemamu and Sheshimamu Esoilam, there were people that caused they caused the world to be desolate. They caused a destruction in the world. So we can understand that even the simple meaning of Nephilim from back in Parshas Bereshis should also be enough to scare the people here. So why do we need this new Pirush of saying that they fell down from heaven? Furthermore, the difference in Rashi in how we translate Nephilim is making a difference not only about how they fell, whether it's they're falling from their world, in other words, having a downfall and being destroyed from the world, or Naflu min hashamayim, that they fell down from the heavens, but it's also going to cause a major difference in who these Nephilim are, what kind of beings they are. According to Rashi and Bereshis, Nephilim is just referring to human beings, to people. Malachim, Shamayim, that's not even mentioned there. Whoever mentioned anything about the Malachim and the heavens back in Parshas Bereshis? Naflu v'yipilu es ha'olam means that through their actions, through their sins, they themselves fell and they caused others to fall. So too, when Rashi explains in his main Pirush the words, and when Rashi explains the words in B'nei Ha'elikim, back over there again in Parshas Bereshis, in his main Pirush, Rashi doesn't say it's Malachim. Rashi says it's B'nei Hasarim, it's the children of the officers and the Shoftim and the judges. So even B'nei Ha'elikim, Rashi in his main Pirush doesn't translate as Malachim back there. And suddenly in our Parsha, Rashi is telling us that it's Shenoflu min hashamayim, they fell from heaven. In other words, that they're Malachim. So the question is why is Rashi need to come up with this new Pirush over here in the word Nephilim different to the way he explained it in Parshas Bereshis? Says the Rebbe, the explanation of all of this is, what's really bothering Rashi when he's coming to answer is not so much that double expression in our Pasuk, Hanephilim, and then it says again Min Hanephilim, as some of the Mefarshim wanted to say. Because number one, says the Rebbe, this double expression on its own is not such a major chiddush. It's not such a difficult thing that we need to explain. We find a number of times in the Torah a double expression just to emphasize something even more. For example, the Rebbe says, we'll have an expression when we'll speak about someone that is a tzaddik ben tzaddik. It's coming to emphasize how great his righteousness, the righteousness of the child is, that he's a tzaddik ben tzaddik. So too in our case, we can say very simply, Nephilim, which means giants, and again Min HaNephilim is just coming to emphasize the idea even more. So therefore, in other words, they're such big giants, and Min HaNephilim, they come from giants, that obviously is just coming to scare the Yidden more. And therefore, we don't have to translate the word Nephilim, that each one has a different translation. It could be it's just coming to say how scary they are. They're giants, the sons of giants. In addition to that, says the Rebbe, if the difficulty, in fact, was because of the double expression Nephilim, so Rashi should have quoted in his Dibur HaMaschil these words as well, or even mainly, Min HaNephilim, because that's part of what Rashi is trying to explain. Instead, says the Rebbe, what's bothering Rashi? In the earlier psukim, the Torah relates how the Meraglim were describing the strength of the inhabitants of the land. Efes ki azom, they're very, very strong, and they have fortified cities. And then the pasuk says, "V'gam yelidei ha'anokri nusham." We saw the children of the giants we saw there. And now, a few psukim later, the pasuk is again mentioning this idea of the giants. So the question becomes, what are the Meraglim coming to tell us here when the pasuk says, "Vayitziu dibas haaretz"? Something new is happening. They're slandering the land. They're coming to say some new things. and they're saying the gam yelideo anokri nusham. In other words, this is what they said before already. The gam yelideo anokri nusham. What are they adding now again by saying they saw the giants? Besides just calling them Nephilim, but they're seemingly just repeating the same idea. So this is what Rashi is coming to answer. Rashi says Nephilim, when they added the word Nephilim, is actually coming to tell us something new. Because we're speaking about these giants that came from Shamchazoy and Azol that fell from the sky. With this, the Meraglim are actually coming to add something new completely. In other words, what they're saying is we're not only speaking about that category of the giants that we mentioned earlier, which about them we learned already in Pashas Bereshis, Hanephilim Hayu Ba'aretz, there were giants on earth. In other words, there are human beings that the fear of them is so great. And so that's normally what giants are, that are very huge and very great, etc., etc. But here they're coming to add, we're not only speaking about people, human beings that are so giant in their size, but here we're speaking about something else. They're coming to add something else. Nephilim, that they come from Malachim, they fell down from the skies. Why are the Meraglim saying it over here? So, because what happened over here was, there was something that happened in time in between what they said earlier and what they're saying now. The Torah relates that when the Meraglim concluded their previous speech about the strength of the inhabitants of the land, the Torah then goes on and says, Vayas Kalev Asam, Kalev had quietened everyone down. And he says, Oloi Nalo, we're going to be able to go up via Rashnois, and we'll conquer it. Ki Yochel Nuchalo, we'll overcome them, we will be victorious over them. Rashi explains that Kalev silenced everyone by completely refuting their arguments, that they said the people are strong. And Kalev said that Moshe had shown us tremendous miracles, completely beyond nature. He split the sea for us, he brought us down the mud, he gave us the slav. And therefore, Kalev says, Olei Nala, surely we'll be able to go up. Even if we had to go up to the sky. And Moshe Rabbeinu told us make ladders and go up there, we would be successful in everything the Moshe says. It is to this that the Meraglim now come and say, Loi nuchal ala salam, we will not be able to go up to the people, ki chazaku mimenu, because they are stronger. What does the word mimenu mean? Mimenu could be understood as they're stronger than us, but Rashi tells us that, so to speak, they were saying it Chas v'shalom to Hashem, about Hashem, that the nation is stronger than Hashem. If the word mimenu would only mean that they're stronger than us, than the Yidden, that wouldn't be a response to what Kalev had just proven, that Hashem could make miracles to help the Jews. And therefore Rashi says they must be giving a different argument now, that these people in Eretz Yisrael could even fight Hashem, they're even stronger than Hashem. But the Meraglim couldn't just suffice with saying that. Because at the end of the day, how could the Yidden who saw all these miracles really think that there could be anything that's more powerful than Hashem? And this is why the Meraglim are now adding some more details. When it says, Vayitziu Dibas Haras, they're giving back reports about the land, they want to say something that is going to allow the Yidden to believe that there could be something that's stronger than Hashem. And that's why the Meraglim are adding over here and say, V'sham ra'inu es ha-Nephilim, we saw the Nephilim. They didn't mean the physical height as giants, because obviously physical height is completely insignificant when we're speaking about Hashem. Rather, they mean a certain specific strength that is meant, that's brought out with these words Nephilim. And that's why Rashi tells us we're speaking about giants that came from Shamchazoy and Azal that fell down from the heavens. That they're not just regular giants, but they come from Malachim that came down from the sky. And that's why they have the ability to rebel against Hashem. Says the Rebbe, however, the Ben Chamish Lemikra is still not so satisfied with this explanation. Things are still not so smooth. Number one, does it even make sense to say that a Malach would want to rebel against Hashem? Number two, even if we would want to rebel, is it even possible that he should have any power to be able to accomplish his rebellion against Hashem? So Rashi needs to somehow show or prove these ideas. So Rashi adds that when did they fall down from the heavens? Be made doir enish. We asked before why that's relevant. Because with these words, Rashi is answering both of these issues. Number one, what's the doir enish? The pasuk says, "Az huchal likroi b'shem Hashem." What do these words mean? Rashi explains that they started calling human beings with the name of Hashem, meaning they started themselves worshiping idols, making people into idols. worshipping Avodah Zarah. And therefore it's understood that when we speak about the Malachim falling down at that point, Min HaShamayim, in that generation, it's also connected with this sort of idea about a rebellion against Hashem. So this answers how we see that, yes, Malachim sometimes will rebel against Hashem. Number two, since these Nephilim are coming from those Malachim that fell down at the time of Enosh, now in between the time of Enosh and this time, the Mabul happened. That means they weren't destroyed through the Mabul. That means even though the waters of the Mabul were through the facts that the windows of heaven, so to speak, opened up, as the pasuk says, the rain came down from Shemayim and it was boiling hot water and it erased everything on earth. And yet these descendants of the Nephilim were not completely eradicated. That shows that their strength is to such a degree that even an oynish min hashamayim, something coming from heaven, and yet somehow Hashem wanted that it shouldn't have any power over them. So this again shows us this idea that what they're claiming is that these malachim in a certain sense are more powerful, so to speak, or could even fight Hashem and Hashem's punishments. Says the Rebbe, now we can also understand why Rashi brings the names of these Nephilim, Sham Chazoy and Azoil, because that is going to emphasize even more their power, their strength to rebel against Hashem. By the Nephilim in Parshas Bereishis, the pasuk uses the expression Anshei Hashem. So one of the explanations that Rashi gives for that is Oisam shenikvu b'shemois. The people over there, there's names of people that are mentioned, that are explicitly mentioned, and they're called by those names because of the destruction. They were eradicated and destroyed, wiped out, etc. In other words, the idea of the names of the Nephilim is very much connected with who they are. So the names represent what they are. So back to our case over here, the names of Sham Chazoy and Azoil are clearly hinting of who they are, what they are all about. And Rashi doesn't even have to explain it because that's a simple meaning of these names. The word Sham Chazoy is put together of two words. Sham, shame, Chazoy. What does that mean? That when you look, the word Chazoy is in the expression of looking, seeing. When you look at him, the word shame or sham means destruction or making something desolate, as Rashi himself translates on the words Anshe Hashem. We quoted this before. Anshe Shemamoin Sheshimam Usoilam. They destroy, they cause the world to be a desolate world. So that's Sham Chazoy. The name Azoil, in addition to the fact that the name itself, as it is, represents the strength of this malach, Azoel, Az, is the word of strength and power. It also reminds us of the Azazel, which we learned about in Parshas Achrei, where the goat on Yom Kippur is sent off to this high mountain or cliff called Azazel. Rashi translates over there. What does Azazel mean? It's a har az v'kosha, tzuk gavoya, something very hard, something very strong, a very high cliff. And it's not only any strength, but it's a place of az v'kosha. In other words, a place of, again, being desolate, a place that's not inhabited, etc. So these two names of these malachim represent that what are they all about? It's all about strength. It's all about bringing destruction to the world. The opposite, actually, of what Hashem had made a covenant with Noach, that the world should be an inhabited place. So again, these are two malachim that are, so to speak, going to fight that idea of the world being an inhabited place. They are coming to destroy the world. So again, these names all bring out their might and power, and what the Meraglim were trying to say is that they could even fight Hashem. Says the Rebbe, according to all of this, will be more understood, more sweet, and more geschmack, the continuation of the Rashi's explanations on the next few words in the pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'shamra inu es hanefilim." We saw these Nephilim, and then it says, "V'nehi beineinu k'chagavim." We were in our own eyes as grasshoppers. V'cheinu inu beineim, and so too we were in their eyes. On the words "v'cheinu inu beineim," Rashi explains, we heard them saying to each other that it's like these little ants in the vineyards that they're like look like people. Then Rashi quotes the word Anok. And remember, this is a word really that was earlier in the pasuk, as the Rebbe is about to point out. And he explains, Shema'anikim chama b'kemos, and these giants were so big that it looked as if the sun was like a necklace around their necks. So the Rebbe asks, number one, why is Rashi even suddenly looking for an explanation on the word Anok? Furthermore, if it's necessary, Rashi seemingly should have said it on that earlier pasuk, the Gam Yelidei Ha'anok Re'inu Sham. And finally, why is Rashi explaining this word Anok after he had already explained V'chein oyinu b'einayim, and we were in their eyes like grasshoppers? This is not in the order of the pasuk. First it says b'nei Anok, and then it says that we were in our own eyes like grasshoppers, and we were in their eyes like grasshoppers. Says the Rebbe, the explanation is, if we're speaking about normal, regular giants, tall people, so compared to giants, so other people that are on regular, normal heights, you can't say that they look like little ants in the vineyards. Because the height of a giant compared to a regular person is 3 amas. The giant is bigger than that, but it's not, we wouldn't say it's shaloi be'erech, it's not so huge of a difference like between people and ants. And therefore, says the Rebbe, it's only after Rashi explains that the Meraglim say that they heard them saying to each other that we see like ants in the vineyards. So now Rashi has to say that the word of Anok is such a huge giant that it's as if they're putting the sun around them like a necklace. And the Rebbe says this fits very, very much with what we explained earlier in the differences between the psukim. The first time it says Anok, where Rashi didn't find it necessary to explain it, and the second time, where we're speaking now, together with the Nephilim, and Rashi finds it necessary to explain it. The first time when it says V'gami lidi Anok re'inu sham, there it just means Anok, it means giants. It's only here when we're speaking in a new context, we're speaking about Nephilim, we're speaking about people that fell down from heaven, Malachim that fell down from heaven, or their descendants. So they are such great giants that they're making the sun like a necklace around their neck. Now it makes sense that we are in our own eyes like grasshoppers, and so too we were in their eyes. The Rebbe now turns to the Yenishal Torah, to the Chassidus of this Rashi. The Rebbe says, this that Rashi adds, V'shamra inu es anafilim, and that the Meraglim Rashi explains with these malachim that fell down from heaven, fits very much with the idea of how we understand the claims of the Meraglim in the way Chassidus explains it. It's known the explanation of the Alter Rebbe regarding the Chet HaMeraglim, that their logic of not wanting to go into Eretz Yisrael consisted of the fact that they wanted to remain in the Midbar because there they're going to be able to remain removed and above all the preoccupations and bothers of matters of parnasa, of earning a livelihood, and generally from being involved in the gashmis of the world. In order to be able to dedicate oneself to avoid the ruchnis, they felt they were much better in the midbar. When they go into Eretz Yisrael, an inhabited land where they're going to have to work the 6 years sowing the fields, etc., etc., they felt this is going to remove them from being able to be involved in spiritual avodah. The root of their mistake was their attitude or their way of thinking that Ruchnius and Gashmius are in contradiction to each other and must remain a contradiction to each other. They somehow thought that there's no way of bringing together, of being able to be involved in Gashmius and at the same time remaining connected to Ruchnius. This is what the Meraglim say, Eretz Oichelos Yeshver, it's a land that consumes its inhabitants. What they're saying is that if we settle in the land and we get involved in the earthly matters, we are going to be, Eretz Oichelos, the land is going to consume us. We're going to be sunk into all the bothers and worldly matters. Oichelos Yeshver, it consumes its inhabitants. Says the Rebbe, now we can understand what they say, V'shamra inu es hanafilim, which Rashi translates as the children of Shamchazoy and Azor that fell from the heavens in the times of Doir Enosh. The Chazal elaborate how lechatchila these malachim came down into this world with a kavanah l'shem shamayim. They wanted to come into this world and be able to remain pure in this world. But they weren't able to overcome the materialism and all the challenges, the tests of Olam Hazeh. They fell down from their high levels. Despite their tremendous high level as they were when they were in the spiritual worlds. When they came down here, not only weren't they able to hold on to their previous high levels, on the contrary, this caused them in a feeling they fell much lower than they were originally. And this is what the Meraglim are saying to the Bnei Yisrael. That even though, yes, in the Midbar they were standing on a very, very high spiritual level, completely removed from all worldly matters, they were like Malachim. But going to Eretz Yisrael is going to cause that they are going to fall down from their levels. To this Yeshua and Kalev respond, Im chafetz banu Hashem, if Hashem wants us, the Hevi Yisrael Eretz Yisrael will bring us to the land. Do not be afraid of the Amoritz, of the people in the land. Kilachmeinu, they are our bread. And Hashem is with us. What do they mean? What they're saying is that even though it's true that regarding Malachim, when they come down into the Gashmis of this world, they become Nephilim, they fall from their level. But Yidden are different. Because Chafetz Banu Hashem, Chafetz means Hashem wants us. It also means Hashem's desire, Hashem's pleasure is in the Yidden, and the Yidden's avoided down here. And therefore Yidden have Shaloi Be'erech higher koiches than Malachim. The neshama of a Yid is a Chelek Elikami Mal Mamish. Yidden and Hashem are, so to speak, all one. And therefore, the Yidden have that power of Hashem to be able to bring together the two opposites of Gashmis and Ruchnis and bring them together and making the Ruach, the spirit, overpower the physicality and be able to bring the spiritual into the physical. A Yid, in addition to just being able to remain connected to Ruchnis, even while he's in the Gashmis of the world, he can actually transform the Gashmis of the world itself and make it a Dira Lo Yizbarech. And this is what Yeshua and Kalev are saying. Chafetz Banu Hashem. If we have Hashem's desire and Hashem's pleasure, the Hevi Yisanu Hashem is going to bring us. Since Chafetz Banu Hashem, excuse me, Yidden don't have anything to be scared of. The Amhar, it's the people of the land. Furthermore, Lachmeinu, what does it mean? They're our bread. Not only won't the land consume us, but on the contrary, they are going to be able to consume the land, the people of the land. Yidden are going to elevate, purify the whole eretz, become a balabayis over the whole land, and to transform it, make it into a dira lo yizbarich.